Hi, I'm Roger Belcher with the Kids Hope Alliance. Today's video, we're going to cover SAMUS budgets without salaries and wages. We call that a Type B budget. And the first thing I want to cover will be the fiscal workflow. It's imperative that you understand that on the provider side, there are two levels of one for creator and one for submitter. And that can be the same person, or you can have two different people handling those roles. The creator obviously will generate the budget worksheet, and then when everything's completed, forward that to the submitter. Notice it has not yet made it to the Kids Hope Alliance. The submitter can review it and or will review it and can reject it or approve it. If they approve it, it is submitted and goes to the Kids Hope Alliance. And the reviewer at this point is the contract manager. From the reviewer, once it's approved at KHA, it goes to the final approver. That's the KHA finance team. And at that point, it's an approved budget, or it can be rejected. A rejection can come from the reviewer, the contract manager, back to the creator, or from the finance department at KHA back to the creator. So this is a workflow, and you need to understand that until it's actually submitted, no one at the Kids Hope Alliance has seen it. We're going to go over some emails so that you understand what the receipt will look like. When the creator forwards it to the submitter, an email will be received that looks like the one we're seeing here, budget forwarded, in the subject line. That will go to the creator from the SAMUS system. You want to make sure that your email system is not blocking messages from SAMUS as spam or putting them in a folder that you wouldn't expect due to an Outlook rule or something of that nature. Once the submitter submits that to the Kids Hope Alliance, then an email will come back confirming the budget has been submitted. And again, I'll emphasize that it can be the same person. You can have the one person as creator and submitter, or you can break that down into two different people fulfilling those roles. A rejected email will indicate such in the body of the message and so forth. And it notice it says needs editing and resubmission. So that's what a rejected budget email would look like. And then an approved confirmation, you see here in the subject line the wording budget approved. So don't assume that your budget is good to go until you get that email. And then if a significant amount of time goes by and you've never seen a budget approved receipt through email from the SAMUS system, you might want to contact your contract manager and have them take a look and see what's going on. So how do we get there? How do we create that budget? Logging into the SAMUS portal, we're going to choose fiscal. Now, only people that have a finance management access role will be able to go into the fiscal area. So if your part of your job is to go in and create budgets and you click fiscal or you don't see fiscal on the dashboard, then contact KHA and your contract managers and let's see what's going on there. You may not have access for it yet. When you click it, when you click fiscal, then you'll be taken to the fiscal area, the fiscal module. And the way to create that budget is to choose fiscal documents from the sub menu. Right there, you see it in the top left of the red box. And then a drop down will appear and you'll choose new fiscal document. Once you've done that, you'll get a screen that looks like this. And and by the way, I'll say this more than once probably. You cannot have two fiscal documents at the same time in the system. So you can't have a budget that's waiting to be approved and start trying to create your first reimbursement. The system will not allow you to create a second fiscal document until the one that's in the system has been approved. Now you can have multiple fiscal documents that are approved, but you can't have one unapproved and then start another. So to get the budget generated, the first run parameter will be your fiscal period. Uh, and you may be watching this after 2023 or later than summer camp season. And so you would just find out what the appropriate fiscal period is from your contract managers, or in most cases, the SAMUS Help Desk could probably help you with that as well. You'll choose your program agency. Now, if you go down to the program agency field after choosing the correct fiscal period and you don't see your program, then that's a technical issue. You'd want to contact the help desk, samus@coj.net. But let's say that that is there and you have access to it. Your document type choice will be budget. You'll also see options for reimbursements and amendments and so forth. You'll choose budget and you'll say no to copy previous fiscal period budget. Once you have everything identified correctly, you'll create your document, click the button, and before we go to the next screen, let's talk a little bit about what could go wrong. Obviously, if you choose the wrong fiscal period or program name, or you don't choose budget when you mean to, that's a problem. But if you were not assigned as a budget creator in the SAMUS system, then you're never going to be able to do this. So if you get to this point and you can't create that budget once you're here, then you probably have not been assigned as the budget creator. You might be a finance manager. You might be authorized to go in and work on your program, but you have to be in the workflow as a budget creator. And the same for reimbursement. Some organizations will have one person create the budget, but a different person create the reimbursements. So those are some of the things that could trip someone up at this point. But let's say everything's correct, then we're going to generate that worksheet, the SAMUS General Ledger. And the first thing that I recommend is that you make note of the budget number. In this case, it's 602497, and you put that in your record somewhere in case you need to discuss this budget at some point in the future. Having that budget number is helpful. Also confirm that your program name is correct. And for some organizations that have multiple program names, you may have inadvertently chosen the wrong program there, and that your agency name is correct, which is the smaller font in green. And then take a look at the allocation. What was the amount of your award? Is it the same as what you see on the allocation here? If not, then stop and contact your contract manager. You might need to delete this and let them correct any issues with the allocation. If there was a typo or misunderstanding somewhere, it needs to be cleared up before you proceed past this point. Once you're certain that the allocation is the same amount as your award on this budget worksheet, then you're going to want to fill in your line items. Now, for a no salaries or wages budget, you may or may not have more than one line item under the expense accounts. It's common for some types of programs to only have one line item in this scenario, and it would be units of service. But what I'm going to show you here to complete units of service would be the same for any other line item. And you may have 2 or 3 line items without salaries and wages, but they'd all be done in expense accounts. So in this example, let's say that we're only doing units of service, and that comes from the approved budget within our contract. So I'm going to click units of service here on the general ledger so that I can fill in the line item form. And I start by putting in the expense amount. Now here I have 150,000 asterisk 1, or multiplied by 1, only to show that that can be a formula similar to what you're probably used to in Excel. I could have just typed in 150,000 and left it like that. But in the event that you're doing a line item, let's say like field trips, and maybe you're going to have 4 field trips at $100 each, then you could say to explain that for review, for audit, and for approval, you might say 100 times 4, and then down in the note, you would say this is 4 field trips at $100 each to explain why you broke it down that way. When you put in the expense amount, it's going to pre-fill the amount funded by CSC in this field, the second one that the second red arrow is pointing to. You do not want to type in that field. You only type the dollar amount up in the first field, the expense amount of calculation, and let it pre-fill down in this second field. And then for the note, and here units of service must represent the total allocation for this example, and the one that I'm doing here. In other words, I've got a $150,000 allocated budget, and I've only got one line item, so it's got to be $150,000. If I've got multiple line items, they're going to break down and then sum back up to the grand total of the allocation. Let's see. And so I think I've already discussed everything else in the note, but the note's purpose is for you to explain why you're putting that amount in for those that will review it at KHA. Then you're going to save expense, click that blue button, and then click back to summary. That will take you back over to the general ledger. And at that point, notice that the total expense and the total program budget are now filled in here. If I had a complete picture of the general ledger, you'd also see the line item. We don't need that to show the next step here, and that is to click forward. I'm the creator for the agency, and I want to forward that to the submitter at the agency. So I click the blue button that says forward, and that is what happens. It sends the submitter an email. Now, by the way, you're thinking, what if I'm the submitter as well, creator and submitter? That's fine. Go ahead and do this. Click the forward button, and then go back out to your dashboard and come back into it, the general ledger, so that you can submit it. And you would go out to your dashboard and you find it in your queue. So I think we'll see that on a slide in a moment or so. And as I said, the creator and submitter can be the same person, 2 different people. Neither are KHA employees. And here I'm illustrating in this intermediate step before it's submitted, the budget is still in edit mode or edit status. So keep that in mind, that you do not have an approved or submitted. The next status will be submitted. I'll get the email, as we discussed earlier, that says the budget's forwarded. And if I don't get that email, assume that it didn't get forwarded. Assume something went wrong, or else your email's being blocked in some way. Here's that queue I was talking about. If I'm the creator and the submitter, after I forward it, I just come back out to my dashboard in the fiscal module, and I look at my queue, and I'll see the budget still in edit mode, and I'll click the blue link to it there from the My Queue pod and open it up again. Now I'm back in the general ledger. I can take a look at it. Now let's say that I'm not the creator and the submitter is not the same person. I, as a second set of eyes looking at this as the submitter, may see some sort of an issue and choose to reject it back to the creator, in which case the creator would fix whatever problem needed to be resolved and resubmit it. Note, I, as a submitter, would not be able to edit this general ledger. I must, if there's a problem or I need it changed, send it back to the submitter. They are the only person that would have edit rights to the general ledger. Okay, but let's say everything looks good. I'm going to click that blue submit button, and now if I were to look, I would see the status has changed to submitted. And that means that it's been sent to the Kids Hope Alliance contract manager reviewer. And I would get a budget that confirms, or an email that confirms that it has been submitted. Again, if you don't get the email, assume it did not get completely or processed for being submitted over to KHA. Now then, here we see just an example of the general ledger again. So as it comes over for the reviewer, the contract manager sees it the same way as the submitter does. Here we're seeing an example of what the email will look like once your budget has been approved. That means that it went through the review of the KHA contract manager. The contract manager forwarded it to KHA Finance, and they reviewed it and approved it. They matched what your budget shows on the general ledger with what the contract should say. Okay, so status after a KHA has approved the budget. How would you find it? Let's say that you want to double check. You're not sure for any reason. Maybe you can't find the email and you want to double check before you call. You can go to Fiscal Documents, the same place you went to create it. But this time you're going to do a search. And in the search filter, you're going to type the name of your program. I have a test program that we're using called Jumbo. And so I type that in and hit enter. And there I see everything in the system for Jumbo. And I do see the budget. Notice the ID number, 602497. When we first saw the general ledger, I recommended that you always make note of that, because you get into the budget here, and that's a fast and conclusive way to confirm that you're looking at the budget you think you're looking at. Now, another way to do it is to look at the start date, the end date, and see if that matches the current fiscal period and so forth. But the ID is the best way to make sure you're looking at the right document in a search criteria scenario like this. So what if your budget is rejected? The creator will receive a notification of the rejection. We saw an email example of that already. KHA contractor or finance managers would have provided instructions for remediation. If you have questions about those instructions, contact the KHA contractor or finance manager. Now, the SAMIS help desk for ordinary types of rejection issues will not be able to help you on why your budget was rejected or what you need to do to fix it. You'll need to speak to the contract manager or the finance manager, whomever had rejected it. Now, if you have a question about where do I click, which button do I click to make something happen, or that type of thing, a technical question, then contact samus@coj.net. We'll help you with that. But a question of why did you reject? I don't understand why you rejected my budget. That we're not going to be able to answer that on the help desk. That would be the contract manager or the finance manager. Making corrections and then forward and submit the modified budget. So you remediate and then you go through the process again. You save it, you forward it to the submitter, and then the submitter submits it, and it's back over at KHA again. Now the next slide shows where to find comments describing what should be changed. It's very important. If your budget gets rejected, you want to know how to find the instructions, right? So let's look at that. So in the email that's going to come back to you, there will be notes in the body of the email message when you receive a budget needs editing and resubmission. And you see here I've highlighted that, and it says whatever you'll need to do, that'll be shown there. And if you have a question about that, that's when you contact the contract manager or finance manager. Now the workflow log shows the same thing. If you're on the general ledger, there is an icon up near the top that says workflow log. If you just want to see it again once you get in there because you can't find the email, you can go in there and you'll see the instructions as indicated here in this slide. And that's where the workflow log is if you're on the general ledger. And notice there's the status on the far right in red is rejected. So, and then you can provide comments back to KHA in the using the add notes icon right there, add note. Now let's just go over some important SAMIS fiscal facts. Only one fiscal document for a program can be in progress at any one time. I mentioned that earlier. That means if you have a fiscal document that is waiting to be approved, don't try to create another one until that's resolved. A program's fiscal document roles of creator and submitter can be two different people or the same person, but multiple people cannot be assigned to either role. So you cannot have two people as creators and a different person as submitter, or any combination thereof. There's one creator, there's one submitter, and it can be the same person, but you can't have more than one creator, and you cannot have more than one submitter. To assign or change who is assigned to those roles, submit a user request form by emailing it to samus@coj.net. You can get the latest version of the user request form from your contract manager, or you can contact samus@coj.net and ask for one to be emailed to you. All SAMUS generated email messages will originate with a sender address of samus@coj.net. So you want to make sure that that's not being blocked by your spam filter or in any other way. A program budget cannot be created in SAMUS until you have a contract manager that has allocated the budget in the system and the program page has been activated by the data systems team. Now this becomes an issue sometimes at the very beginning of the year. The program pages are activated so that the data people can start enrolling the participants, and then the finance manager says, oh, I'll just go ahead and create that budget. I know what it's going to be. But they go in there and they get to the place where they would need to generate it in the fiscal documents, and it won't allow it because it has not yet been allocated by the contract manager. So before you create your budget, you want to coordinate with the contract manager to ensure that it has been allocated in the system. That means for your program page, a dollar amount has been entered, and only the contract manager can do that. And so those are the things that have to happen. Now, they can allocate one, but if we have on the data systems team have not activated the program page, that too would be problematic. So make sure both things are done before you get started. If your organization receives an advance payment, no action is needed on the budget. You don't have to do anything on the budget to say you're going to get an advance or request or anything like that. Advanced payback options are addressed only on the reimbursement worksheet. So to pay an advance back, so to speak, you do that on the reimbursement. That's where you see interaction about advances in fiscal documents. Now we're working on creating a request for advances. That, as the taping of this video, that's not active yet, but it could be in the future. So that would be the only other option or time where you would see anything about an advance before the reimbursement within the SAMUS fiscal document area. Okay, so fiscal document creator for budgets, reimbursements, and amendments will receive an email notification, as we already discussed, when those documents have been approved or rejected. So depend on those emails. In the past, when people didn't understand that, they would assume that something had been approved when it had not. So it's very important to watch for those emails. If a fiscal document is rejected back to the creator, you'll find the instructions, as we've seen, on the email and on the line item, or that should say on the log, on what to do to correct it. Follow those instructions and then save, forward, and resubmit. And if a fiscal document is rejected, only the creator can make the corrections. Ensure the budget total matches the contract award amount. So you want to, if your contract says you're getting $100,000, but your budget says something other than that, it's not going to work. You need to have that match exactly. Okay, for technical assistance, I mentioned samus@coj.net for emails, or you can call the help desk 255-4410. You might have to leave a voice message if we're helping other people, but so tell us the number to call you back in a good time and so forth. So right now I want to show it to you in real time. So I'm going to go into SAMUS. I'm going to go to fiscal, and we're going to, if the system isn't too slow today, okay, there we go. We're going to create a budget just as we saw in the slides. I'm going to fiscal documents, and I'm going to new fiscal document. I happen to be the creator and submitter for the one I'm going to attempt to create here. So here we have the new document module. I'm going to choose my fiscal period. In this example, 2023 summer camp. You may be doing something else in the future. And then I'm going to choose my test program, and then document type. I'm going to go with budget. I say no for previous budget copy and create document. Very good. Now I have a general ledger. Look at all those line items. In this example, we're only going to do one. We're not going to do any salaries and wages, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make note of my budget number there, 602, 608. And I'm going to confirm, yep, that's my program name, and yes, that's my agency name. And then I'm going to look at the allocation. Yes, that's the amount I'm expecting as per my contract award. Okay, everything looks good. Notice the status is in edit mode. Scroll down a little bit, and for this example, there's one line item on my approved budget within the application for this contract. And that's units of service. You may have 2 or 3, or you may just have one line item. You click the units of service or the line item title, and then you get this little worksheet area. So I said before I could type in just 150,000 and leave it at that, and that's exactly what happens. Notice it filled in this field, it filled in that field by me typing up here. If I were to come up here, as I mentioned earlier, and let's say I have 4 field trips at $100 each, notice how it does the calculation for me. We like it if you do the calculation if you have multiple things going on there. And I think I got multiple zeros going on there. Here we go. And then whatever my note's going to be as per my approved contract budget. Something in there. And that explains it. And then I'm going to save. And I'm going to go back to the summary page now. System's a little slow today. And now I see total expenses, total program budget, match the allocation. And I scroll down, and there's my line item. I want to see the same dollar amount in all 3 columns. That's the program allocation, original CSE budget, amended CSE budget. There's no amendment here, but it's still, you need the same in all 3. And that shows 100% of my budget. If I were doing 100,000 here, it would show whatever percentage that came out to be. Here I have, as per my approved contract, that's what I typed in my notes. And down at the bottom, my grand total matches my allocation, so this is good to go. I'm going to come up here, and actually I'm just going to click forward. Okay, and that will process it. And in just a moment, we'll be able to switch roles. Now there's my budget, and it's in edit mode. And this is the place where I can come in and do searches. If I come in here and I do a certain word and I hit enter, notice that the one that did not have jumbo in the program name dropped off. If I come back in here and space that out and hit enter, it probably will pop back. There it is. Okay, so what I want to do at this point is go back to the budget. I could click view here, and that would open the general ledger so that I could submit it. But I also want to point out that there's another way to get there. I could go back to the dashboard by going up to this icon. And once it processes, here's my queue. And there it is in my queue as well. So there's 2 ways to get to it, from the search result set or from my queue. Now, if I were just the creator and not the submitter, I would not see it here. But because I'm both roles, I see it here, and so I have to go back in. It is not submitted yet. I'm not going to go over and pull up emails and everything, but they're generated. I heard it come in. And now I'm going in as the submitter. A submitter could come in and open that line item again and take a look at what you got there. You can go back to summary, and then everything looks good. Notice that instead of all those empty line items, it consolidated this to just show the one line item because it only shows line items with a positive dollar value. Okay, this looks good to me. I'm going to submit it. Okay, and the process that we've discussed in the slides is precisely what will happen. It will go to the KHA contract manager. Notice it's in submitted mode. When you see that, you know everything's good. And then an email will come in saying it's submitted. I can rest assured at this point, either it will be approved or I'll get it back again. And to just go back out to the dashboard, we'll click the icon right here, and I'll see that because I was a submitter, and it shows me the status as submitted. And at that point, it's not editable. Once it goes over to KHA, then it's either going to be approved or it's going to be rejected back to the creator. So that covers the basics of how to generate a budget, get it submitted to KHA for approval, what to do when it's rejected, how to contact us if you have technical questions, when to contact contract management if you have content-related questions to your budget. So I hope this helps. Good luck with your budget creations, and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.